structures and the, materials are the same, but ultimately this doesn't look to me like a female uterus, like a human uterus, because it's not. But nonetheless, everything is here, so we do the best we can. The main reason that they're different is because pigs have litters, many piglets at a time, many babies, many offspring, where humans only have one. So if you think of a human uterus, it's typically referred to as like an inverted pear, a little bit upside down pear. It kind of has a knobby part at the bottom, and then it bulges out for the body and the fundus up top. And one baby typically forms within that uterus. In pigs, when you come in from the vagina and the cervix, instantly you don't get in a pear thing. It just branches into two branches, a left and a right branch. They're called uterine horns. And the piglets develop along the length of the horn. And then there's a one on the left and one on the right. So that, and they spiral and twist. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. So instead of a paired, like one shaped structure, you're seeing two horns, it's almost like two uteruses for all intents and purposes. They're connected down at the cervix. So let's start there. This is very convoluted and it's very firm, so I'm a little tough to show things that doesn't want to give way. So here is the cervix, right there. So the sperm, and it might actually be even a little bit of vagina right there. So the sperm would come in this hole right there. So if you're picturing, that's the opening to the outside. Now, it instantly splits into two. You see that? That's the tricky part. So it doesn't really look like a human's, but from here out, most of the stuff is the same. Okay? And so we see this this uterine horn over here. You kind of see how it kind of twists around, but it's essentially a tube, a thick tube. It goes through various parts, and we see the same thing over here on the other side. We see a pouchy part right here. There's a baby inside. Then it goes to a little muscular, skinny part. Then there's another pouchy part with another baby, and then another skinny muscular part, and then another pouchy part. Alrighty, so it's just a little different, but nonetheless it's all the same. The outer layer here is the perimetrium. So that's the outer layer. That's kind of mostly what you're seeing here is perimetrium. Then on the inner layer, that folded layer, what do you think that layer is called? Not the myo. On the inside is the endo. The myo would be in the middle there, and it's not very thick, and so we can't really see it, and it's not on the list. But perimetrium's on the outside, endometrium's on the inside. Now this pouchy poochie part has been opened up. Not sure where that little piglet came from. Here's another one. So what we see here is the placenta. So see this placenta? Students often confuse it. Please understand, we don't take these pigs for dissection. We just use them because they've already been slaughtered for some other reason. So you see the placenta is kind of this mushy tissue that's coming out. It's often confused with endometrium, but the endometrium's on the inner wall. Obviously, this is not on the inner wall anymore. It's dangling out here to the side. So that's placenta. And then you see the umbilical cord, and we're going to have to add fetus. The little babies, the fetus. And you can see the umbilical cord is attaching the fetus to the placenta, just like in the books. So if you think about a human, if we're pretending we're a sperm and we're moving our way in, we go in from the vagina through the cervix, which is part of the uterus, then we go into the uterine hall, the big area of the uterus. Then up, what do we have next? There's a one on the left and one on the right. What are those two things up at the top of the uterus?
Ovaries.
Not yet. The fallopian tubes. And the fallopian tubes, if you followed them, you'd end up getting towards the ovary, right? And so we're going to do that here. We just got to follow this uterus, which is a little harder than in a human because it spins around and it's kind of long. But we're going to work our way. There's ovaries here, fallopian tubes, everything. So we're going to work our way up. It's a little twisty. That's the hard part. Okay, so we're just following it along. Maybe it's twisted up and untwisted a little.
So you're not going to make it easy for us to just...
Well, I'm making it as easy as I can. Okay, so this is all uterus. Here's a pouchy part. There's a skinny muscular part. It's a little twisted. I understand. Ultimately, we're going to end up at a fallopian tube. Coming along, coming around, coming along, coming around. It's getting a little smaller. It's getting a little more narrow. There it is, right.
Oh, wow.
Hang on. Right there. Okay. So you see that squiggly tube? That's the fallopian tube. So right here is where I'm pinching here with my right hand where the uterus is ending. See, the uterus is winding down, and look at it. You gotta look close. Look what it becomes right there in my middle finger. See, that's the fallopian tube. Do you see it?
Mm-hmm.
And you see it gets kinky or convoluted by my thumb here?
Yeah.
It's a little hard to see, but it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what that thing is? Covered with a membrane. Ta-da!
Is that an ovary?
It's the ovary itself. This membrane covering it that I'm teasing away to show the very lumpy, bumpy ovary, this is the fimbriae that I'm teasing away. I just teased it on it in the last section. So there's the ovary and this little hoodie thing. This little hoodie thing, it's a membrane that really goes over like a hood. It covers the ovary, is really the mouth to the fallopian tube. It's not really going on so well. Again, it's a little finicky. See the squiggly tube? It's almost embedded in the membrane. Ultimately, if I were to take this probe and shove it in the fimbriae, it's going to end up going in that fallopian tube. See, the fimbriae is just a big Y, like a funnel-shaped opening. So if you're a sperm, you're swimming up. It's a little, fallopian tube. It's very narrow. It goes like this. It goes like this, and then the fimbriae kind of widen out and go around the ovary. So when the egg comes out, it ovulates out of the ovary. The fimbriae's job, and they become active during the sexually receptive time when a female's ovulating. They kind of start to go like this, and they create an inward flow. So the egg just kind of gets drawn up into the fallopian tube. Once in a while, I don't know if you know, the egg is just ovulated into the abdominal cavity. And sometimes the egg can just go in the abdominal cavity if the fimbriae doesn't do its job. The job of the fimbriae is to kind of get the ovulated egg. Now, by covering the ovary like a hood, you're increasing the chances that you're going to get it, and it's not going to escape out somewhere. Sometimes we see the pictures of the fimbriae, they look like feathers or fingers, kind of gently around the ovary. Here it's a little more complete as this hood-like membrane kind of wraps around the entire ovary. So, again, ovary is the bumpy, lumpy structure. Fimbriae is the membranous-like hood. And if you look, the hoodie thing kind of gives way to the fallopian tube, the convoluted fallopian tube. So again, it's a little messy. Nothing's really bending the way I wanted to, but I'm trying to display it all to you here. So the ovary, the membranous fimbriae, the convoluted fallopian tube, which ultimately the fallopian tube connects in to the uterus. See the kinky? I think the fallopian tube and the fimbriae are kind of the hardest to see because it's so messy in there. The ovary's kind of easy, the uterus is kind of easy, but these middle sections, and you're welcome to look at it. I know I'm a little tight on time. Welcome to look at it when I'm done if you wanted to, have a far view and you can't really see too well. So if I could check that list, please.
Did you say anything about the oviduct?
The oviducts are the same as the fallopian tube.
Oh.
So that tubule, the very narrow, thin, convoluted tubule, is the fallopian tube. I don't know why I put oviduct there.
Okay.
I think I used to call them oviducts. Most people call them fallopian tube. Please understand, fallopian tube and oviduct are the same thing. They're interchangeable. Also, uterine tube, which gets people confused thinking about the uterus now, but that's another name for fallopian tube, is uterine tube. I think we covered everything then. Endometrium, placenta, umbilical cord, don't forget fetus, oviducts.